Hello and welcome to Nebraska Medicaid EHR Incentive Program webinar titled Ready, Set, Attest Program Year 2017. We are so glad you could join us today, and we are going to be starting the gist of the webinar shortly. Next slide, please. This slide outlines the vision, mission, priorities, and values as set forth by our Governor, Pete Ricketts. This is our guide to interaction with the public to ensure greater effectiveness and efficiency. Next slide, please. We have a few housekeeping items to go through before we begin. First of all, please mute your phone while the webinar is in session. If you want to ask a question, there are a couple of ways you can do that. One is you can open the chat box, which can be done by hovering your mouse at the top of your screen, and you can enter your question in there. Also, as part of that chat box, when you open it, you will see a hand icon, and you can raise your hand icon, and we will unmute your phone, and you can ask your question live. You are welcome to ask questions at any time throughout the webinar. If you think of a question after the webinar is over, feel free to contact us after the webinar another day, next week, whenever that happens for you, at dhhs.ehrincentives@nebraska.gov. All questions asked during and after the webinar will be listed in a frequently asked questions post on our website, and that is listed there. The link to our website is listed there. We want you to know that this webinar is being recorded and will be posted on our website, as well as the slide deck and the FAQs post-webinar. We have a question. Can we get a copy of the presentation to review the slides after the webinar today? Yes. The webinar slide deck will be posted on our website. Next slide, please. The overview for today, my name is Diane Rolfsmeyer. My colleague Karen Moran is here helping to present, and we are the program specialists that work with the EHR Incentive Program. We are being ably assisted today by Lavana Mosslander. And our discussion points are how to register and attest, reviewing the CMS final rule changes, and at that point we will pause for questions. After that, we will have a spotlight on dentists and their process for attesting for meaningful use, and then a final question time and wrap up. And with this, I think we are ready to begin. Karen? Next slide, please.
Thanks, Diane. Okay, so this slide is just talking about registering, and if this is the first year you're testing in Nebraska, you'll need to complete these registration steps before you can gain access to our portal. First, the CMS registration must be updated on the CMS registration and attestation website, and you can access this through a link on the left-hand side of our portal, or we have the website listed here directly for the CMS registration and attestation website. Once that's done, you'll be sent an email invitation to register with us, and this generally takes 24 to 48 hours. You could access this invitation by clicking on the Provider Web registration on the left-hand side of our web portal, or via the link that you receive in the email. Enter the information you're asked for to locate your provider profile, and enter a username, password, and answer any security questions that pop up. Once your account has been created, an activation email will be sent to the email address that was used to register with CMS. Click on the link provided in the email to activate your account, and then you'll be asked to enter the username and password for that was created during registration with our web portal. Next slide, please. your CMS registration information needs to be up to date. So even if you're not new to Nebraska and you've attested with us before, before you attest this year, ensure that your information is up to date with CMS registration and attestation sites. The information that is on that site directly interfaces with our web portal, and that's why it's so important that that information, in particular the contact information, is correct. Again, the CMS registration and attestation website can be accessed on the left-hand side of our web portal, or you can click on the, we've got the website listed here that you can access directly. Next slide, please. As you're registering and attesting, if you come across any issues, you can certainly reach out to us directly with our email address, or you can review the user manual that we have on our portal, and we've got the web address for our portal listed here. The user manual is located on the left-hand side of the front page of our portal. Next slide, please. Okay, so once you've updated your registration, you're ready to log into your account at Nebraska EHR Incentives, which is our web portal, so that you can attest. Enter your username and password that you have previously set up for attesting. If you don't remember, you can click, if you don't remember your user ID, you can click on Recover User ID, and you'll be required to enter some information to obtain your user ID again. And if you don't remember your password, click the Reset Password, and you'll have to enter your username and the security questions that you had previously set up to obtain your password. Complete each of the pages on the attestation, and when you're done, read through the affirmation statement, and if you agree, click I agree. This will allow, by doing this and clicking I agree, this allows your attestation to be sent to us so that we can review it.
Karen, we have a question from Abby. Has raised her hand, and we are going to unmute your line.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, great. Well, you know, I was just looking at that, logging into the Nebraska DHHS site, and, you know, I see it referencing, you know, if you don't remember your user ID and such, you can have it reset. But my issue is that I am new, and so it is set up, but it's with a previous employee that's no longer here and no longer accessible. So we need to change it from a previous person to myself. Do you know, and I'm fully set up with the EHR, the Medicare, the INA. I'm fully set up on that side, but I just don't know how do you change the person that would be attesting?
This is Karen. So it's a provider that has attested with us before, but the person that used to be in charge of all that's no longer with your company. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that. What I might suggest is that you reach out to us directly by email, if you don't mind.
Oh, that'd be fine.
And I can assist you with that one-on-one either later today or tomorrow. If you want to just send me an email with the best way to reach you and maybe the name of the provider so I can look them up in the system.
Perfect. Yes, I will do that. Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. Okay. Next slide, please. I would like to refer you to our EHR library, and the link can be found below and also on the left side of our website homepage. This is where you can find more detailed information on registration and attestation. And in particular, we are sending you to our webinar titled 3817, Attesting to AIView, Copy of PowerPoint Slides. In particular, you can look at slides 5 through 10 for registration information, and slides 11 through 23 for attestation information, which includes screenshots, and we think this will be very helpful for you. Next slide, please.
In order to attest, there are certain criteria that you need to meet, and we'll just review what that criteria is here. You need to be a current Nebraska Medicaid provider. You must be registered with Medicaid through CMS and not already registered with Medicare's EHR incentive program. You need to be using a certified electronic health record technology system, or a CERT system, that has captured the meaningful use data that you'll be attesting to. You cannot be considered hospital-based unless you practice predominantly in an FQHC or RHC. You can't have any current sanctions, and there's some patient volume requirements that you'll need to meet, and we'll talk about here on the next slide. Out of all the patient encounters that you had during a 90-day consecutive period within 12 months from when you attest, you need to meet or exceed certain percentages of Medicaid encounters. Hospitals, it needs to be 10%, eligible professionals, 30%, but please note that if you do practice predominantly in a federally qualified health center or rural health center, you can use your needy population to reach this percentage. And for a reduced incentive payment amount, pediatricians can have Medicaid patient volume percentage as low as 20%. And this is how we define an encounter in Nebraska. The patient must have been enrolled in an allowable Medicaid program at the time that the service was rendered, regardless if anything was paid on the bill. Medicaid can be primary, secondary, or tertiary. It can be for any type of service. Only one service rendered per day, per patient, per provider can be counted, and Medicaid encounters for state-funded only programs cannot be included. Next slide, please. We offer a tip here on this page that when you attest, while it's not required, we would encourage you to include a detailed Medicaid patient encounter report for the time frame, the patient volume time frame you're attesting to. Include the date of service, the name, and the date of birth of the patient. And please note that we do not want any non-Medicaid patient information, so be sure to remove this before you submit this to us. And, you know, I've indicated that it's not required that you turn this in with your attestation, but we do have to do some validation on our end to make sure that you reach the required percentage. And so chances are good that we would come back to you and ask you for it anyways. So it would just help save some time up front for you if you can just include it with your attestation. Next slide, please.
Are you feeling like you're carrying the weight of the world right about now? Here at EHR, the staff understands that attestation process is challenging, and we have put forth a fair amount of information in this webinar and links and references. Next slide. But hang in there, we're almost done. And we want to take this opportunity to reiterate that we are always available to answer questions at dhhs.ehrincentives@nebraska.gov. Next slide, please.
Okay, so this slide talks about your Certified Electronic Health Record Technology number. And sometimes we get questions about where providers are to find this number, because it is something that you will be attesting to in our portal. This number should come from your EHR system vendor. They should have this for you and be able to give it to you. However, if need be, you can also obtain it through the Chapel website, which is the Certified Health IT Product List. That website is listed here. And on the website, type in the name of your EHR system, and you'll receive back a list of product names. Identify your specific system from the list of products, and then click on the term CERT ID next to the product to obtain the number. And typically it's a 15-digit alphanumeric ID. Next slide, please.
We have excuse me, we have accumulated tips for attestation, both from providers and also from our experience in going through the review process. And I'd like to go over some of these, the highlighted ones. Most importantly, the biggest tip that we can offer for you is to keep all attestation data electronically. And it doesn't matter if you are attesting for yourself or you are assisting multiple providers attesting. If you would create a folder for each provider, and within that folder, hold all the needed information and documentation, that will prove to be very helpful for you, I'm sure, and is the #1 recommendation from providers who have used this process in the past. Secondly, your biggest friend is your EHR vendor, because all your meaningful use and CQM data come from your certified EHR system. So your vendor will be able to assist you in determining how and what to submit and attach to your attestation. They are going to be one of your greatest resources. New this year, as a result of a provider recommendation, we are able to offer batch uploading. We now have the capability to upload those items that are consistent across eligible providers of a large group, such as patient volume data, registry information, EHR system validation, those kinds of things. As a group, one copy comes in and we will attach it to all the appropriate providers of that group. We have defined large groups as 15 or more providers in one group, and if you are interested in participating in a batch upload, please contact us at dhhs.ehrincentives@nebraska.gov. Lastly, and this sounds like such a small thing, I realize, but it is so terribly important. All of our correspondence regarding our program will always be sent to the contact email that is entered in the CMS EHR registration page. So please take the time to review and update the contact information, and we have the links to that site listed here on this slide. Next slide, please. And again, I refer you to our EHR library for more tips on attesting, and specifically, we suggest that you look at our webinar titled 6/2017, Attesting Common Questions Explained, a copy of the PowerPoint slides, where you'll find more tips. Next slide, please. Nebraska's review process. So the attestation review process includes 2 separate and complete reviews of every attestation by 2 Nebraska Medicaid EHR staff. There's 2 complete reviews done. Nebraska Medicaid EHR staff will contact you if we need more clarification regarding information that's been submitted. The attestations are all done on a first-come, first-served basis. Processing time varies on the number of attestations that we get and how complete those attestations are. You can check the status of your attestations at any time on our portal, and the portal address is listed here. The first page after you log in will show the provider dashboard, and that has your attestation status. And once you're approved, once your attestation has been approved, you will be sent an email that indicates that. Next slide, please. Okay, so this slide addresses the recent CMS final rule changes, which are from the fiscal year 2018 IPPS, Inpatient Prospective Payment System changes, and those impact the Medicaid EHR incentive program. So the EHR reporting periods for meaningful use objectives and clinical quality measures are now 90 days for all providers in program year 2017. The number of clinical quality measures for providers in program year 2017 changed from 9 to 6, and meeting a set number of domains like before is no longer required. For program year 2018, modified stage 2 or stage 3 can be used.
We also have on our webpage, our DHHS webpage, more information about the final rule that goes into a little more detail than it does here. And so we would encourage you to check that out. The link is provided here. Next slide, please.
And now we're going to pause for questions. And I would ask that the person who raised their hand, Abby, we see your hand is still raised. If this is from your first question, could you click on that raised hand icon? Thank you for that. I wanted to make sure that you didn't have an additional question, but thank you. So, again, if you have a question, please raise your hand icon and we will unmute your phone so you can ask your question, or you can type your question into the chat box. This slide also lists up our email address, dhhs.ehincentives@nebraska.gov. Please use that resource for any questions that you might have regarding this webinar or the attestation process or any other EHR incentive program questions that you might have. And on this slide, we have the links to our web page as well. We have a new question on the chat box. Will the Nebraska attestation process change for dual eligible hospitals with the move of CMS attestation to Quality Net?
That's a good question, and no, at this time we don't believe there will be any changes to how our hospitals are attesting with our web portal because of CMS's change to Quality Net. If we become aware of some changes that we need to make because of it, we will certainly notify you otherwise, but at this time, just attest like normal.
This gives me an opportunity to lift up that every time we do recognize a change from CMS or some issue comes up, we try to reach out to all providers either through an email blast or we will put something on our website. So this provides me the opportunity to tell you that you should go to our homepage at our website and subscribe to that page, because every time there is a new update to the website, you will then be notified, and you can check out what the new news is. And we have a hand raised from Jeanette, and you are unmuted.
Oh, okay. I just wondered if you knew if for the 2017 program year for MIPS, the ACI measures electronic prescribing and HIE exchange, there's still the exclusion for the Medicaid program, but there wasn't the exclusion for the MIPS program. But it sounds like for 2018 there'll be the exclusion for those two measures, but it looked like there was some debate about 2017. Do you know that there's still that exclusion? I know this is a Medicaid webinar, but
that's okay. And is this? Did you say it's related to the MIPS program, not the EHR incentive program?
Correct.
Yeah, you'd have to check with CMS since that's a program through them, unfortunately.
Okay. I thought maybe you knew. That's all right. Thank you.
Thanks for checking anyways.
Are there any other questions? And I want to remind you again, if you think of something after you've hung up or tomorrow or next week, don't hesitate to email your question to us about this webinar or anything else that you have a question regarding the EHR program, to dhhs.ehrincentives@nebraska.gov.
So let's, okay. Doesn't look like at this time there's other questions. So we'll continue on here.
So the next section of our webinar really deals with dentists and how they attest to meaningful use. Those who are not dentists are welcome to stay and continue to listen to the webinar, but you are also welcome to sign off. If you do sign off, please note that you will be receiving a survey question immediately upon signing off. Please take a moment to answer that survey regarding next webinar topic. With that, I think we're ready to start the spotlight on dentists. Next slide, please.
Okay, so the next two slides will be spotlighting dentists attesting to meaningful use, and this information, while it's not necessarily only pertains to dentists, sometimes we just want to reiterate this information for dentists attesting to meaningful use, that it's important to remember these things that we've spotlighted here. So we'll just go through them. Remember that you can attest to exclusions on meaningful use measures if you qualify for them. CMS does allow exclusions on certain measures, and so if you refer to the specification sheets that CMS has for modified stage 2 or stage 3, depending on what you're attesting to, these specification sheets go into pretty great detail about the measures themselves, what's required, and also what exclusions, what will qualify you to take an exclusion on each of the measures. And we've got the links to these specification sheets listed here. 0 is an acceptable answer as a numerator and a denominator for your clinical quality measures, as long as this is what your certified EHR system is reporting. And there is 53 clinical quality measures that you can choose from, so be sure to choose the ones that are most applicable to you in your practice and is in accordance with what your certified EHR system is producing. Next slide, please. So be sure to attest to meaningful use measures based on what your certified EHR system is showing. And, well, you know, while that seems pretty simple, it's important to remember that you don't have to, when you're attesting, you're not trying to come up with different things. You should just be simply following what your report is producing, because the numbers that your report produces is what you'll be attesting to. Be sure to work with your vendor to attest to the appropriate meaningful use measures and clinical quality measures that apply to you. And don't forget that you can contact us with any questions, and we'll help you wherever we can, and our email address is listed here. But above all, remember that dentists can and do attest to meaningful use. Next slide, please.
And so we are at the last portion of our webinar where we are ready to receive any dental attestation questions, either through the chat box or by raising the hand icon. Actually, if anyone's thought of an additional question that has to do with any part of the webinar, this is another opportunity to bring that question forward. Please remember that this is being recorded, and the recording of this webinar, along with the slide deck and any appropriate frequently asked questions, will be posted on our website, and that is listed below. And again, just want to make sure that you understand we are easy to contact at dhhs.ehrincentives@nebraska.gov. So if there are any questions you think of after the webinar, don't hesitate to email that question to us, and we will help you with that. Our email address is listed on this slide, as well as our website. And I'm not seeing any questions come up. So next slide, please. Thank you for your attendance. We hope that this has been helpful for you. When you sign off and we close off this webinar, please take a moment to respond to our survey question. Again, Karen Moran and myself, Diane Rolfsmeyer, are available at the email address listed on this slide, as well as the phone number listed here, and our website link is also on this page. Thank you again, and have a good remainder to your day.